Ooh. All right, 1 second. I got to get the audio fixed to get your sound back. Everyone's probably wondering, whoa, how come Dragon's all by himself today, guys? Don't worry, I'll get that fixed. All right, let's see if that works now.
Hi, hello.
There we go, we're back.
All right, so the Baptiste coming off the ban, definitely something we've seen in both Europe and North America. Provides a lot of AoE damage, crowd control, burst. Vox, very popular ban as well, especially as we see Baron kind of start to fall out of the meta. Vox, in most situations, can be just as strong as Baron, if not better. And that's actually pretty interesting that we have a Grace and a Lyra coming out first. So we do have two captains come out first, and both of them have a lot of healing and crowd control potential. So Lyra obviously has the Bright Bulwark as well as has the speed from her Imperial Sigil for her own team. And then we have a slow on Grace as well as a stun. So pretty interesting draft so far. Baron making it all the way through so far. I did think he was going to get taken out in the second round of bans. But it is indeed a Grumpjaw and a Samuel taken off the table. So how do you feel about the Samuel ban?
I mean, I think it's interesting. We do know Samuel level 2 offers an insane amount of power spike. And so looking at, you've got this Grace. She's going to have early game advantage as far as invading jungle. So not having to worry about a Samuel in the jungle to like start poking her down. That Drifting Darkness is so wide that even someone as fast as a Grace may have some trouble disengaging here. But the Lyra and Glaive, this is a cool combo because this does allow you to really engage on to whoever comes out of FNATIC. So FNATIC now, with Baron still on the table, has to be a little tricky here because Lyra and Glaive can deal with the Baron from a crowd control perspective. And it's almost as if we're seeing Reliable Union understanding that and trying to maybe get themselves countering the Baron pick before it even comes out.
Yeah, and I would say that in most cases those are good counters to Baron, but we haven't really seen a whole lot of Baron Grace combinations yet to really be able to know, is this still going to have the same amount of sustain and the same amount of burst at the same time? Because Glaive has a lot of upfront damage that he can also continue to output, and that's what makes him really good into Baron. So with the Grace able to negate some of that damage, I just don't know if it's going to work the same.
Yeah, and a lot of time being taken by FNATIC to think about this pick. It makes sense, you know, I'm sure they intended maybe to pick up someone like a Baron. They're going to go with the Black Feather instead. And I like this. This is a hero that can get out of those really tricky situations, out of some of that crowd control here in the lane. Avoid a lot of those ganks you could expect from a Glaive. And then Koshka comes in here in the jungle, I think really to just make sure that, you know, early game with this Grace, they could pair up and actually go toe-to-toe damage-wise against the Glaive.
Yeah, and one thing we do have to think about here is this is now a triple melee comp that FNATIC has dedicated themselves to. So there are a couple standout picks here to me that make a lot of sense. We could flex his Glaive to the lane as a lane weapon Glaive. He handles pretty well into both Blackfeather and Koshka. But this also leaves a big opportunity for Rhyme to come out, but we do see the Scarf. So this is a very traditional European pick. We've seen Scarf maybe not in the meta across all regions, but it's something that Europe is always comfortable playing and plays at a very efficient rate, I guess to say. So I'm not disappointed to see this Scarf. Again, you know, triple melee, the Rhyme does work really well, but at the same time, so does the Scarf. You get that goop down, you get a lot of healing back out of the Eve. It's really easy to hit targets that have to jump straight at you to get damage too, so to me, it does make a lot of sense and should serve its purpose as long as Koshka doesn't snowball this Scarf to no belief.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll just have to kind of wait and see once we get into here. We're waiting for the game to officially start, but the draft is concluded. I think really with the Scarf, if you could just stall the game, eventually you will be able to take over and win. You know, it's one of those heroes that no matter what composition, if you get to late game, you usually
leaves the big opportunity for Rhyme to come out.
Pretty good advantage of getting into that game and taking a win. We are getting started, getting right into it, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. As game number 1, it is between FNATIC and Reliable Union, with FNATIC here on A-sided. All right, we're just about ready to get into it, guys. So, you know, early game, I think, you know, you could expect a lot of harass coming out of FNATIC, Denomine.
We realistically should. This Grace and Koshka combination is incredibly deadly in the early game, and I do like that they've put this glaive in the lane on the side of Reliable Union though. I just think that because of Scarf's clear in the jungle, he can really keep up with the Koshka. So as long as he doesn't get caught out, the Scarf should be able to handle Koshka pretty well and potentially be able to outscale her pretty early in the mid game. So that's something that we got to look out here for huge out of this Scarf, is we're going to get that Frostburn completed, and that's really going to allow him to control how aggressive Palmatoro is allowed to be.
Like Hodedov and Netolet going at it in the jungle. Look at Netolet. So much damage coming out of the Grace already. And, of course, a lot of awareness by the side of Reliable Union to try to get in front of that Grace in the jungle early, so not to allow Grace to get so much vision and information. Palmatoro coming here on the Koshka already. Going to pair up with the Grace. Looking to do a decent amount of damage. Now the Scarf, level 2 already, so he should be able to, yeah, the Goop's going to come out, is going to do a ton of damage, but the Koshka, early game, no surprise, is able to go back and forth. That Sigil doing a great job giving the heal back to Scarf, though. It's actually going to be Scarf picking up the first blood here. Netolet soon to follow, and wow, double kill coming out already from Hi-Fi HF guy. Really, really impressive. I think just a big mistake by FNATIC to overstay there. I mean, once the glaive came down, and of course that Sigil coming out early for the Scarf was allowing HF guy to stay in that fight.
Yeah, and he got that Sigil down with the very last breath of his life. So to me, that just worked out incredibly well for them. Kept Scarf healthy enough that that Goop that the Grace was standing in took her down dangerously low. And then a smart rotation out of Daredevil to come down, get that Koshka stunned. That was allowed them to find 2 kills in the trade for 1. So, you know, they may have lost out on the first blood, but they got 2 kills to answer it.
Yeah, and I mean, 2 kills is really huge because you get an extra gold. And in addition, you also get a lot of farm that you're able to clear uncontested. See Koshka coming in again. Palmatoro trying to be aggressive, but this is actually pretty concerning that the Koshka's just not destroying this early game. Netolet gets stunned up, pulled back. There's a Scarf coming in again. Look at all the damage coming out. Glaive. Daredevil oh, he does get the kill. Okay, so it's Scarf that gets the credit, but able to get in there without losing his life. Not a bad start for Reliable Union whatsoever, and really concerning considering Scarf's only going to get stronger.
Right, and again, this is something that Europe has really been consistent with for several patches. You know, all the way back dating to, you know, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. They were very, very efficient on this Scarf pick, and Reliable Union, you know, showing that they can bring the Scarf into the jungle and compete with this Koshka, which to me is really good. He's playing it well. He's fighting behind his Goop, really preventing Palmatoro from having free range over Koshka's vast amount of movement speed. So if he can keep this up, you know, Koshka is going to have a pretty big spike at level 6. But if he can keep this up and you know, not fall behind, the mid to late game should be a really, really easy win for Reliable Union.
Absolutely. Now, Koshka should hit a decent power spike in the next few minutes as well. That will be kind of hard to deal with. Scarf is going to be at risk of that. So, what I really love about the Lyra Glaive pickup is it does offer a lot of peel once they get into these 3v3 fights, as long as Scarf's not caught out by himself.
Yeah, and one thing that FNATIC does have going for them is the Holy Nova is, a lot of players consider it to be a pretty hard skill to land. It has a pretty sizable wind-up time, and then as players start to get into tier 2, tier 3 boots, they can really just walk out of it. And so that's, to me, a good steal by Netolet there. But, you know, to me, that's going to be FNATIC's capitalization moment, is if Netolet recognizes the Scarf ult, gets into the fight, and gets that Holy Nova down, they may still be able to deal with the Scarf in the late game.
Yeah, so far, though, the gold's pretty even. It's actually FNATIC somehow managing to take a lead. A lot of that credit goes right over to Techno JJ here on this Black Feather. He's farming considerably well, able to get a lot of this farm, and actually really depriving HF guys. So Scarf doing well early with those kills, 3-0 and 0, but the challenge was because of those kills and engagement, losing out a little bit of his farm, and Black Feather is going to give him a lot of harass. He's going to be a little bit slower early with that farming, but of course scales really well. Another kill. Black Feather does find the glaive.
Yeah, he does, and that's one really nice thing that the Black Feather does have into glaive is he has the execute style damage available to him, and that scales based on the missing health. And so Glaive does have a high health pool, but it's based on a percentage of missing health. So the lower he gets, even though it is more health than your typical carry like a Ringo or a Vox, that Black Feather execute still brings a lot of damage to the table.
Absolutely. Well, 3-man FNATIC rotating down. They're going to shop, continue to farm. They've got now actually a 500 and some gold lead. Both supports able to pick up Fountain around the same time. Actually, looking at the buys, Vision coming out as well. So pretty consistent shopping all around here. No Aftershock just yet for Palmatora, but that is going to be a considerable power spike to keep an eye out as he gets it. He's probably going to get it in the next minute and a half.
I would definitely think so, and I do like that we have this reflex block already prioritized on the Scarf. It's really, really smart. Scarf, seeing the rotation down, does come back behind the Crystal Sentry. Again, he's playing it just really smart. He's not putting himself too far out there, and that's really where Koshka capitalizes catching somebody out. So as this game goes on, Koshka is just going to keep falling off, and Scarf is going to substantially ramp up once he gets a Broken Myth completed.
Absolutely. Frostburn, definitely one of those items early that could be a real pain to deal with for someone like Koshka, or aggressiveness. Like, you get in there, you get slowed a little bit, but can't really get out. 6 minutes, no turret yet. So the early game, although a little bit of advantage for FNATIC, not really super bad spot. You see Goop comes out, nice Dragon Breath early. The 6 minutes comes in. The Dragon Breath, of course, has to be forced to disengage. HF guy need to get away. A lot of damage coming out between Koshka and Black Feather, but there goes the Glaive going in really hard. Takes a lot of damage. He's gonna actually die here as he takes one more shot from the Koshka to get the job done. But Palmatora dropping very low here, is gonna fall. Nice Spitfire coming out of HF guy. There's a stun though by Grace, and you talked about how hard it is to land that stun earlier. Though it's a little bit easier, and of course coming in there from the bush, definitely a big surprise. Not an ace, but FNATIC picking up 3 solid kills.
Yeah, and catching Scarf walking into the bush when Grace had just really been taken out of vision for him, he didn't really have an opportunity to see that stun was coming. That allowed Techno JJ to get that on point landed and get that Faint of Heart execute down, taking him out of the fight, almost picking up the ace, but just a split second shy.
That's really a really well played and a good job by FNATIC to go in there. A lot of aggression, and you really kind of have to have it. I was, for a few moments of this game, it's been actually a little bit of a passive FNATIC, but right there, showing everybody that they know how to play this composition. They need to be more aggressive at doing it, and getting a few objectives. No turret or gold mine, though, have been secured by either team. And those are pretty large objectives that both these teams need to be thinking about. FNATIC definitely needs to prioritize how they're going to get this lane rotation pushed up far enough to claim one of these. After that nice 3-man kill wasn't an ace, but they still weren't able to go and pick up one of those critical objectives.
Yeah, and one thing that's key on Techno JJ's build to me right now is he's prioritizing a lot on this lifesteal. He has both the Poison Shiv and the Serpent's Mask. And this is a pretty non-typical Blackfeather build to me, I guess I would say, because the meta has shifted pretty heavily. We've got an engage. That is another sentry going down.
That's huge. And so this is really interesting, Denabade, is these sentries going down is actually going to remove some of the strength in the late game for Reliable Union.
Yeah, you don't really have that safe place to fall back on.
We have another engagement around Gold Mine. Both teams, they're contesting. We do see the Koshka still try to get that down. Does secure the Gold Mine. Netolite gets a heal. Heals himself from his own ultimate there to get that through. And man, really good fight. Well played by FNATIC. They're able to secure the Gold Mine and not drop a single hero. And that's really the best case scenario for them in that situation.
Yeah, especially since they're sitting up at about a 3,000 gold lead now. So again, they should be ahead in the early game because of this Koshka and Grace combination. I'm not sure they're far enough ahead yet.
Yeah, well, they're working on it. I mean, they got the gold mine. The turret's now being pushed up pretty heavily. You don't see the 3-man push into the turret yet, even though Scarf was down in the jungle. Instead, they're going to choose to continue to deprive the Scarf from farm, which right now is definitely working out. It's not a bad strategy. But it is one that will eventually dwindle in effectiveness as Scarf does get his core items here. Working to that Broken Myth. He is a few hundred gold, almost actually, I would say, yeah, about 1,000 or so gold away from securing that buy. So a little bit more time needed before the Broken Myth comes out. That's definitely a really important power spike for the Scarf.
Yeah, and we did see a minion candy actually come out on this sentry, so Reliable Union really not wanting to lose that last life. I think this is smart. That minion candy really brings up the damage that the Crystal Sentry is able to put down, and here comes Glaive again. They are really prioritizing keeping this sentry alive, using this sentry to their advantage to win the fight.
Really smart, too. You really can't lose this for the mid-game to late game. Having that sentry there when Scarf's not quite full power is important for jungle invasion.
Yeah, and stepping back at this Black Feather build, we do see the Poison Shiv and the Serpent's Mask. Now, to me, that's a little off meta this time of Vainglory, coming into this patch. We usually see either a Poison Shiv and a Sorrow Blade to really make sure you have that damage, or a Serpent's Mask and a Breaking Point. So really, really focusing on sustaining through these fights, hoping to outlast this Glaive.
Yeah, it is a lot of heal. Of course, Akashka does a lot of the burst that could get out. That gives a lot of sustain to Tetno to just stay in these fights for a little bit longer. To keep building up. You do see additional attack speed too, so he's got a decent amount of attack speed with that lifesteal. Utilizes correct. They're trying to push here onto the turret. FNATIC not really getting any leverage here. It's going to be defended pretty well by Reliable Union, as they're going to be able to push back FNATIC down to the rotation for the shop as well. And consistently, Reliable Union has held their own, and especially that last sentry there, just being able to come down, identify the aggression from FNATIC, and prevent FNATIC from taking a very, very critical advantage in this game. And as we're approaching the 12-minute mark, and these, you're going to see HF Guy get to level 11. We're going to see a few heroes. Palmator should get to 12 pretty soon. This is where criticality of these teamfights are going to start to balance, because the itemization, once that Broken Myth comes out from Scarf and Palmatora, is going to be pretty much even when you look across the board.
Yeah, and Tenno JJ doing a great job on this lane Blackfeather. He's keeping up really, really well in the farm. We do see very even gold as far as CS goes in the jungle, but that is another gold mine that goes over to the side of FNATIC. And, they're sitting at, about a 4,000 gold lead now, so definitely getting to where they want to be. I think one of the biggest things that we just can't stress enough is if Kashka is allowed to stun you, then the fights are not going to go your way. So it's going to be very, very dependent on HF Guy blocking that Yummy Catnip Frenzy and then following up. And he does have the Broken Myth complete now, and this is absolutely huge for him.
Yeah, they both do. And you're absolutely right. So we're at this point in the mid-game where these fights will become very, very critical. One of the things that FNATIC have done very well, they've obtained several objectives, gold miners and crystal sentries. That's a decent amount of gold. And with one life remaining on the crystal sentry, that is potential to remove a very important jungle obstacle as they get into these late-game fights. But it's a little bit slower. We both agree that, at this point, not necessarily surprising that they're ahead. They are ahead by a few gold. A gold miner could definitely contribute to that, but they're not able to push effectively up to this turret just yet, as we do see HF Guy again rotating up on the Scarf to make sure this turret survives.
Yeah, and FNATIC's doing a great job really prioritizing on the shield as well, and man, they're going very, very aggressive for this Crystal Sentry, and it looks like they should find it, but they're going to lose some life at the same time. I think hopefully the Kashka at least will be smart and get out. Tetno JJ trying to secure at least one kill for his trouble, and does find it on the last basic attack.
Yeah, and that is actually really, really important for FNATIC not to get completely sidelined there, not to lose two of their carries to all three of Reliable Union staying alive. The Lyra would have been able to heal up that Scarf and keep him in the lane as well, or keep him in the jungle. So, nice push. Of course, it ends up coming out even, but again, we talked about very big advantage for FNATIC. Let's see if they can utilize it by taking out that Crystal Sentry so early in this game. If they don't really fight in the jungle, it's not going to matter much, but being able to push Reliable Union back into the jungle with no defensive options is really important.
Well, and a lot of these fights have happened in the jungle thus far, so it is absolutely a good thing that that FNATIC was able to get down that sentry. And yes, they traded 1 for 1, but I would say all day long that was a win for FNATIC, having that objective off the map for the rest of the game.
Nicolette comes in here, does poke out. Daredevil has to move back to his turret. Underneath turret here is we're going to see another wave push up. The turret's really low. This could be FNATIC securing the first turret. The barrier's still up. Nice job by Daredevil to keep that lane far enough back. Actually might have bought himself enough time to save this turret even. As now all of Reliable Union's able to be up here defending this turret. And again, FNATIC, they are looking for this push on the turret, but they're being very cautious about it, which I have to say is smart. I mean, pushing too soon against the Scarf here, as we do see the Scarf building out stronger and stronger in his itemizations, will be dangerous under turrets. So looking just kind of for that right moment, chipping the turret down further and further by just a little bit. That turret very close to going down now.
Turret is very low, but again, we're only really one fight away from Reliable Union being able to take down one or more turrets, because Scarf is incredibly good at pushing turrets when there's nobody to contest it. And we see 3 offensive items completed here from Techno JJ and Daredevil. Not quite enough gas in the tank to finish that one off under turret, but you know, he is dangerously low, and Scarf has to back for no energy. This could be the turret going over to FNATIC here. Yeah,
this is going to be a turret. Stun does come on. Double stun, not able to block it. Glaive tries to use the reflex block to survive. He is going to drop. The Lyra barely survives thanks to that sigil. And now they're going to try to go for the next turret to push. The Scarf's deleted. And just like that, FNATIC blows up Reliable Union. Able to take this ace. This could be another turret even. They are going to instead look to go for Kraken here. Is a quick push towards the turret to get these minions. No, they are going to go for the turret instead. I think this is definitely the right call. No need to start a Kraken if you can get the turrets for free.
That is true. They can definitely get at least 1 turret here. They should be able to get 2. But I think just the Black Feather alone in lane would have had the opportunity to potentially get 1.5 turrets, and then to have the Kraken in your team at full health after that would have just been more push for you to have. And so now Scarf is really good at taking down Kraken.
No, I think that was a great call, though, because I think that you do risk giving 500 gold over to each of the players. You know, why give them any gold? You get all the gold with none of the loss. And I don't think they would have gotten any of the crystal turrets down. I think they would have gotten it with the Kraken, with that Scarf. If they played it, if Reliable Union had played it well, they may have been able to survive both those 2 turrets. So in this case, you really, from a gold perspective, take the lead here.
Yeah, from a gold perspective, again, though, I think Scarf is better. He's good at taking down the Kraken, but he's not good at fighting past the Kraken because he has to stay on the back line. So that gives your team a lot of potential to pick a clear opening and capitalize on it.
We do have a fight breaking out. Lyra drops really low.
Wow. Lots of damage coming out of this Black Feather as this breaking point ramps up. We're sitting at 10 stacks right now. And that is going to be an ace going over to FNATIC, but not without Grace dropping. But this does leave both carries alive still for FNATIC, and a ace wave behind them. 2 actually ace waves coming in right now.
Man, what a clean game early that Reliable Union was playing to now just have it completely erased. As we've seen FNATIC find whatever it took to get this win. They're going to be able to take this game here very quickly here. It just seemed like in a matter of like a few minutes, they went from having no turrets down to having all of those turrets down. Played very, very well. They definitely took advantage of once they had an opening there. And the Scarf really, you know, didn't get the Eve built out, didn't get to those 3 tier 3s, was not able to really hit the true power spike.
Yeah, and indeed. And, it's really a little disappointing that we did see them play so well in the early game, and the Scarf should be ramping up. But again, this Koshka was just able to find stun after stun after stun without being punished for having to dive in. And again, that is a very, very long stun, especially with a Black Feather who can chain in a lot of damage, and the Grace who can chain in an additional stun with that Holy Nova.
Absolutely. We saw the I mean, again, early, it actually looked like Reliable Union was doing a great job at stopping the early game from FNATIC, and Koshka was struggling to get it, but one thing we saw, eliminating the Crystal Sentry, a big objective by FNATIC. They really prioritized that, and what that meant was they could then ramsack through the jungle without worrying about any real major issues by maybe overstepping their boundaries or engaging too far. So with that, we are going to now get ready for game number 2 here. The draft, honestly, I felt like was a, early game clearly a favorite for FNATIC, and they definitely were able to finally find that window there. And I just think that if you're Reliable Union, gotta be a little bit extra careful during that mid to late game phase where you know that Koshka is really near the end point of where she's going to really hit her true max damage, and then just like survive a little bit. Also, Glaive in the lane really struggled up against that Black.
He did, and I think that was a bit attributed to the Blackfeather does have that natural barrier that he's able to provide himself. So that is one edge that he gets. It also gives him some poking range. Obviously, you know, once you get that overdrive, you have the extended range, but it also is an additional slow for your team, which really allowed the entire team to be able to keep onto this Scarf safely. And again, Blackfeather with his ultimate, he's able to build up breaking point stacks incredibly quickly if he hits multiple enemies. And that again scales your execute damage. So into the comp, this Blackfeather just played it really, really well. He was able to find the damage onto the Scarf when he needed to, and Koshka was able to find the stuns consistently.
Really well played. So we're going to wait a few minutes here to see if they're ready for game number 2. Right. Checked in quick. And then we'll be able to get into the draft. But overall, I actually felt like the draft wasn't really a bad draft for Reliable Union. They really had a strategy to win it. They just weren't able to get to that point. And it was really kind of surprising, and when you go back and look at that game, Reliable Union was doing what they needed to do. They were stalling out FNATIC, but it really, I think all of it turned on a decision by FNATIC to boots down to that last Crystal Sentry life, take that last Crystal Sentry life before Reliable Union really could respond. And that just seemed to throw Reliable Union off. After that, they weren't able to get into the lane. They weren't able to push the lane any further, and therefore the turret fell. And once that first turret fell, FNATIC just opened up the floodgates and just snowballed right from that moment.
Yeah, and especially since they picked all of the fights in the jungle, it was definitely smart of them to prioritize getting that, you know, fourth carry down or third carry down, that Crystal Sentry. And Reliable Union, to me, could have, if they would have made it a little longer in the game, let Scarf get that Eve. They probably could have turned that game around, but again, Palmatoro, Netelet, Techno JJ, these are not small names in Europe, and if you make a mistake, they will punish you for it.
All right, everybody, we are ready to get into the draft for game number 2. So without further ado,
the draft begins.
Let's jump right into it. Now we've got Reliable Union on A side. Get going.
Yeah, and this opens up a little more draft opportunity for them. They do decide to take out the Vox immediately. And again, this is a hero that we start to see more in the ban slot than Baron. A lot of teams have really figured out, A, how to play into a Baron, and then B, the introduction of Grace. So if you can prevent Baron's burst damage, it's really difficult for him to follow up in the rest of the fight. So, you know, yes, you may be able to jump in, get a lot of damage down, but if you're not able to find the kill because Grace reduces the incoming damage and follows it up with a heal, then that leaves Baron very vulnerable, because at that point he's used his jump jets to get that initial burst down.
No, and it's interesting to see how like Baron not even being flexed in games here in Europe sometimes, where it's a little bit different in NA. But again, a lot of that credit towards Reliable Union game number 1, kind of the draft on B side in preparation for that. Grace comes out first pick again. We've seen Grace not really getting banned in these games and having such a high win rate in Europe. It's a little bit surprising as A side able to secure Grace usually first pick consistently.
Yeah, and to me, that's almost at fault of drafting on B side. So, I mean, Grumpjaw is definitely someone that it can be strong, but has had some nerfs this patch. So, you know, taking Grumpjaw off the table when picks like Sky are still available, it doesn't seem like the smartest ban to me. But we do see Baptiste pick up, which was banned in game 1. And another Samuel ban. So now this is interesting to me. I know we have seen HF Guy perform really well on Samuel in the past couple of weeks of VG8. But for a team like FNATIC to come out and say, your Samuel's so good we don't want to play against it, that is a sheer sign of respect for HF Guy on that Samuel.
Ira Band's going to come out back over to B side. There are so many options. Now, jungle seems to be set. Now, they could flex it to support Baptiste, but we likely expect that Crystal Baptiste to come out. So with the laner still available, do they, in this case, go for that Baron pick, or do they go with the Black Feather? We've seen Black Feather very, very popular deflexing into lane as well, but weapon or crystal.
Yeah, and again, that's what's really smart about drafting on B side. You need to pick something that is flex, or pick something that is, you know, very hard to deal with, and they do choose this Baron. I do not like this Baron pick into the Grace. That is the one thing I don't like about Baron this patch is the primary build that people go is just so risky. Now, if he can build into like a Tension Bow, Sorrow Blade, Breaking Point Baron build, poke around the fight, and then once he's built up some stacks and potentially baited out an ultimate from Grace, then maybe he can capitalize on it. But the Blackfeather comes out, and I know Europe likes Crystal Blackfeather into Baron, so this could be a huge pickup for a reliable union here. It is also potentially flexible to the lane as weapon power, but I do think it should come out as a Crystal Power Blackfeather.
Yeah, I mean, it really likely will. We'll have to see how it's flexed depending on who we get for the next pick here out of Reliable Union. And they're taking a lot of time to think about it. Really not surprising that they would, because you've really got a few options. Kestrel comes out, and I actually like this pick. It could be keeping FNATIC guessing. CP Kestrel is viable to some extent, but I think what we're likely going to see is that weapon Kestrel.
Yeah, they may be trying to keep FNATIC guessing, but they do not have me fooled. This should be a weapon Kestrel in the lane who does particularly well into this Baptiste, who is going to be committing into the jungle position, it does seem, and it should be a Crystal Blackfeather in the jungle. Now, this provides a lot of poke. Also, when you go the Crystal path, it provides you a lot of barrier when you do land that on point. So that gives him a little additional survivability to the burst that this Baptiste and Baron are going to be able to put down.
Yeah, and I actually kind of like it. You know, you get the on point, go in on a Baron, you may, you know, deflect or at least, you know, absorb some of that damage from maybe one of those first or two mortar shots. Kestrel here, this is going to be a tricky play. Kestrel's invisibility doesn't really help her much when she's taking a lot of that AoE damage. And Baptiste and Arden, they may be able to find her. If they get an Ordain or Gauntlet in around her and then shut her out or lock her in a fight, that could be definitely very problematic. But we're ready to get into game number 2, everybody. As we jump in, it is going to be Reliable Union on A side, looking to take on FNATIC here for the second time. And it is going to be, it looks like that Crystal Kestrel, indeed. So
it does look like the Crystal Kestrel, and to me, I really do not like this pick into the Baron. They did fool me, and this is very non-traditional from what we'd see in North America. Kestrel is very good into Baron. She provides potentially more burst than Baron, just not AoE. It's more, she provides more single target damage, so she can take Baptiste out of the picture very early, and can also, if she uses her active camo correctly, can get to the back line and take a Baron out in just a matter of a couple shots. So to me, I really don't like this Kestrel, especially since there's a lot of skill shot potential and AoE potential out of the side of FNATIC. You know, this Kestrel can be revealed by a Vanguard, by a Bad Mojo, by a Mortar from Baron, by the splash damage from Baron, and she's just particularly squishy. So I don't really agree with the Crystal Kestrel pick.
A pretty big engagement coming out 2v2 in the jungle. HF guy low on energy, but able to get a lot of damage down. As Grace and Hi-Fi guy, they're doing all right. You know, they're able to kind of hold their own early. Baptiste not quite hitting a super power spike. Did get her Ordain down in that fight, but not much else here. You see another Ordain does come out, gets a stun. It is going to be Grace going down. First blood going over to Baptiste.
First blood going over to Baptiste, and that Ordain doing a really good job of locking down the Grace. Grace is very fast and is able to get in and out of the enemy jungle pretty easily. But when you take too much damage and then you get that Ordain drop down, you know, there's nowhere you can go at that point. Your speed doesn't do you any good if your movement is limited to a very small circle.
No, that's absolutely correct. And that's something that I really keep an eye on, how Palmator plays this Baptiste. I really look forward to it, actually. I've heard a lot of good things about Palmator of recently, you know, and he's been able to help get his team to those 6 points, which is keeping them at a pretty safe spot. So, you know, getting a point already here today, push them to 7. If they can get the win, they will definitely be in a great spot going into week number 4 for this first split.
Yeah, and again, Fnatic is one of those teams that, is very capable of being at the top of Europe. They might not be sitting there now, but they have the skill potential to do so if they find the right engagements in these games. And again, they've played this particular series with Reliable Union so incredibly well. And man, a good glimmer shot coming out of HF guy there, but the healing from the Reap ability, the Reap heroic perk from Palmatoro, gets him a little bit of extra life. He doesn't find the kill, and to me, this is an area where Netolette could have came in there and used the Vanguard and helped get him out, or potentially even find the kill on HF guy. And instead, Netolette backs off to the back jungle, and unfortunately, Palmatoro pays his life for it.
Yeah, I do like Techno JJ coming down there, getting the kill. You got to put a little respect down for these teams, going in there, getting the kill, getting maybe a little confidence. You got to taper that down a little bit. What that means, though, is, an extra little bit of gold plus a lead in farm for Techno JJ as well. So, Daredevil struggled in the lane against Techno, and not surprising, the Blackfeather struggling here against this Baron. The AoE is just too much to handle.
The AoE, and again, that it's not just AoE that gets onto Daredevil, it's also the ability for Techno J to clear waves that gives him the ability to rotate down and pick up that kill when HF guy is a little too overextended. And he's not losing out on anything either. He's not losing farm to turret, he's not losing turret to Blackfeather. So to me, they're just playing it really, really well, and there's a huge amount of burst damage. So once this Grace gets to level 6, we might be able to see these fights start to neutralize a little bit more. Arden is going to have to prioritize on building double shield this game. So Crystal Kestrel, very, very good at poking, but if you are the captain, then your job is to prevent that poke from finding your team. So I would really like to see this fountain completed, and then shortly thereafter, I would like to see a tier 2 shield being produced as well. Maybe after after you get an Atlas Pauldron, or maybe even War Treads for your team.
And actually, a really early fountain for Lycodev to be able to get that and pick that up here. We do see a little engagement in the lane. Techno just gonna have to back out just a tad here as Grace and Blackfeather doing a pretty good job. One shot, one kill does land, gets Netolette. It doesn't bring him down to anything to worry about, but nice shot out of HF guy. I think he might have been going for the Baron, but happy to get somebody, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's not enough damage to kill somebody, it still provided vision on Arden for a little bit. Maybe take away a little bit of surprise that could have been there. Is Grace taking a lot of damage to Palmatoro on this Baptiste? Man, Daredevil dropping dangerously low pretty quickly in that fight too. And one kind of nice scout trap we have here is they're eliminating the ability for Palmatoro to hide in this top bush. And that is really good into Baptiste. And man, HF guy dangerously low on energy, not going to be able to re-engage here. Not getting any damage down on the turret though. That is the one downside of the splash damage. Is with Grace right there, you'd be aggroing the turret onto yourselves almost immediately. So instead, they're going to take the opportunity to rotate down. Techno JJ having almost 3,000 gold to spend. Does pick up a Sorrow Blade and is looking to work towards a Tension Bow. I highly doubt it's going to be a Bone Saw coming out.
Yeah, it's true, but they've been able to do a good job pushing up the lane. So, right now, I kind of suspect that FNATIC, as they continue to be aggressive here, we'll be able to get probably this first turret. We haven't seen so much from Reliable Union here early. They've struggled actually a little bit at stopping FNATIC from getting kind of the rotation that they want here in the lane. Techno does rotate down to be able to share some of that farm with his jungle carry. So nice heads up play. Doesn't really lose out on too much lane in the process.
Not losing on how much lane, but does lose out on a bit of his health as some glimmer shots and on points there do land. However, the Crystal Kestrel is running dangerously low on energy, and again, if Crystal Kestrel has no energy, then she can't provide anything to the fight, and missing a lot of glimmer shots there. Now she has literally no energy to re-engage. She doesn't have energy to put down an active camo. She doesn't even have energy for any follow-up glimmer shots right now.
Yeah, and that's been actually a weird problem for HF guy, continually being low. You don't typically see that a whole lot. You usually see better energy management from these Kestrel carries. Going in here, just trying to get some glimmer shots again. You know, getting those treants are very critical, and timing how you get those and getting them to ensure you get a little bit of the energy regen that comes from securing a treant kill.
Yeah, as well as working into a lot of builds we see on Crystal Kestrel is get that Shatter Glass, and then they start working towards a Clockwork. Clockwork provides a lot of bonus energy for your total pool of energy, as well as a lot of energy regeneration. So that is one big way that the Kestrel is able to stay invisible forever and maintain the energy to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. We just see rotation back up. FNATIC, they did catch this lane open again. They're going to push up, keep pushing. And again, for the most time, if you were to like measure how often FNATIC keeps the lane pushed onto the side of Reliable Union, I'd say it's definitely an advantage for them in time as they continue to be able to do a lot. Baron does a great job against the lane just because he's able to do so much damage in the lane there. Nice one-shot, one kill. Does find Net Toolette that time and brings him very low. So he's going to have to get out of this fight. And Reliable Union finding a little bit of leverage here as, again, once again, stopping FNATIC from pushing up into their lane.
Yeah, and again, you know, they're really, really good at keeping Reliable Union at bay. TechnoJJ actually deciding to use the ult there to help him get the wave down. And that's going to be no damage getting down onto the turret for FNATIC. So, again, you know, they may have forced a recall out of Net Toolette, but they didn't get anything out of it. And, man, that is half of Daredevil's life gone in just one Jump Jets. And there's another one-shot, one kill that just goes wide.
Yeah, it doesn't land here. We do see, though, pressure by Reliable Union trying to clear out this jungle quickly. FNATIC just sticking around in the bush, but they take a few glimmer shots for their trouble. They're staying too long, maybe a little costly, as there was actually vision there by FNATIC to try to hopefully gain that position, but they're going to lose it back off and continue back to farming. And now we're at the point of the game where the Kestrel, with that Shatter Glass, it's going to really start to be a pain for the side of FNATIC. And, you know, he saw an infusion picked up by HF Guy. He definitely understands his power spike right now, but definitely needs to take advantage of it because he hasn't been landing his glimmer shots as reliably, and he needs to hit all those skill shots for sure.
Yeah, and he is doing very good to be ahead on farm now. Crystal Kestrel does have a lot of jungle clear potential. Again, another one-shot, one-kill does come out and finds Net Toolette, but that is not the target you really want to find it on. And a contraption comes out of Net Toolette here, and one huge thing is he's really prioritizing this vision. He has both a contraption and flares in his pocket, knowing that he's going to need more vision than he can just put down.
Finally comes out.
Huge damage.
Not able to land. There's a lot of damage coming out. HF Guy very low. Fallon used, but here comes the Ion Cannon. Just barely scratches them, but look at the damage that Baron continues to do. Daredevil is going to be able to find that kill eventually. That double lifesteal really coming in clutch for him, but not enough to save him from the Baptiste power spike. And Shatter Glass let Baptiste already as well with infusions between both those two players. Definitely coming in clutch. Net Toolette doing a great job on this Ardid, keeping his team alive as, you know, great job going in there and fighting the fight. And big shock here is that, you know, there's no reflex block on HF Guy yet. And just his prioritization, unfortunately, more built into his damage kit and regen. Prevented him from getting out of that gauntlet, which is unfortunate. Forced to fight there and put the entire side of Reliable Union in a bad spot.
It did, and again, that Grace Seal that came out did keep HF Guy alive for a long time in that fight. If he would have been able to position himself out of the gauntlet, then I think that fight could have very heavily went to Reliable Union. But because the Baron was able to jump in, the flare went down on top, directly on top of the gauntlet, which was absolutely huge plays coming out of Net Toolette there, making sure the Kestrel had nowhere to go, capitalizing on the fact that she did not have a reflex block yet. And actually opting out of buying a reflex block has completed the Clockwork and has not prevented the stun. So an Ordained or a Gauntlet is going to be absolutely huge if they can catch HF Guy.
Yeah, I mean, active camo is not going to last long enough, even when you're Crystal, to be able to survive inside. Plus, there's a lot of AoE damage to help prevent that. Nice stun comes in from the Grace. They're looking to get onto the Baron. He's going to be able to reposition back. One shot, one kill comes, lands, and kills Palmatoro, but Barrett's still able to reposition and survive this fight. Balance has been spent by both teams, and Reliable Union finding a leg up there this time, able to push FNATIC all the way back there, and they may be able to start putting some damage into this turret.
Yeah, and again, this Grace just functions so well into Baron that it really makes it difficult for Baron to, just go with a burst build. And that's why, again, earlier I was really hoping he'd go with a build that scales up as a fight that goes on, get some poke damage down, and then commit and engage. And that's not what we've seen. We've seen the jump jets come out, Techno JJ going very heavily forward with those jump jets to get the damage down. The burst being essentially negated by the Grace, and then Baron has no way out of the fight. The Black Feather is there to get the damage down, and then he's at the front of the fight, and these glimmer shots are finding him, and they're taking huge chunks out of Techno JJ right now.
Yeah, the glimmer shot burst is really, really massive, worth pointing out here. But the Baron, if he can land his mortars and paired with that jump jet rocket burst of damage, it's really hard to deal with as well. I think really the surprise here is just Grace is continuing to be an effective crowd controller in these fights here as she goes in, able to land some of those bees. Ordain comes out. There's a fight breaking out. Nice reposition by the side of Baron, but he gets bursted down anyways, blown up. And it's just Palmatoro left, but he's going to go down. And Reliable Unit, they find the ace. This is absolutely massive. After taking that first turret from the side of FNATIC, now they're going to be able to get another gold miner, and they're going to be able to continue to push up here. They may even get damage into the second turret.
They should get some pretty hefty damage, if not the whole turret. I definitely think this Black Feather should have the damage, and that is going to be a free gold mine going over as well. So that should be 1,800 gold sitting in the pockets of Reliable Union. And this Baron being 3 items complete, this is usually where we really start to see Barons take off. But again, Grace just making it incredibly difficult for him to do so. She, when she gets that retribution down from using her benediction, it reduces the incoming damage directionally for her team, and that really keeps them safe from this Baron and Baptiste. And again, if Reliable Union can continue to play this smart and really fight around Baron's jump jets cooldown, then they should be able to take this. A huge one-shot, one-kill coming out of JJ there.
Yeah, it's going to push him all the way back. Nice shot and skill shot here from Reliable Union. That gives them a little bit of a positional advantage in this lane again. They might even be able to push up on this Crystal Sentry. We just see Techno coming in here looking to defend it, but instead choosing to clear the lane. So that is going to be the second Crystal Sentry going down. 1 life remaining for the side of FNATIC.
1 life remaining, and HF guy's actually doing really, really well on this Crystal Kestrel, playing at the back of the fights, and that's really how you need to be playing this pick, and he's doing it so well that he's finding a lot of damage through multiple targets as they try to engage. So, very, very huge shout out to HF guy on this Crystal Kestrel, finding a huge 1-shot, 1-kill on this Baptiste. But this is a 2v3 after that 1-shot, 1-kill comes down, and that is unfortunately not going to be looking good for your team.
Yeah, big mistake actually by the side of Reliable Union, because they got the 1 shot and Black Feather said, all right, I could get the kill, but he's forgetting. You've got an Arden with a Vanguard and a Fountain up. So that 1-shot damage, it does a lot, but it's going to be mitigated for at least a temporary amount of time. Black Feather goes in, and then he gets blown up himself, and Grace couldn't get out of there as well. Kestrel's still alive. She could steal this Kraken if so chosen, but HF guy instead going to just focus here on the farm. The Kraken should be easily secured. 1-shot, 1-kill does come out, but the Kraken does go over to the side of FNATIC. And what was looking actually pretty strong for Reliable Union as they started to look to come back into this game has now somewhat dwindled. FNATIC with a clear leg up.
Yeah, and again, this Black Feather build, it is not as much damage as like a Sorrow Blade, Breaking Point, Poison Shiv build, but it does have damage that scales up really quickly. They found a great 1-shot, 1-kill onto Palmatoro, but with no glimmer shots to follow up, there just wasn't the damage, and that really allowed Baron to get a lot of splash damage down on both Grace and onto Black Feather, and this is a turret going over very, very quickly for the side of FNATIC.
Yeah, they're able to siege turrets really well. Active camo does land. Palmatoro stunned up, has to back away. The nice reposition, but Black Feather looking to keep going on. Ion Cannon lands. Tons of damage. Here comes the Gauntlet, but the damage onto the side of Palmatoro is already very high. 1-shot, 1-kill doesn't land, but there's already going to be able to take out Palmatoro as the stun. Netolette has to get out of here. Baron's going to get lit up here, and finding, though, after that rocket leap damage, the kill, they're going to find, no, they're not going to find Grace here. I'm surprised.
I'm very surprised at that choice there. And HF guy, again, dangerously low in energy on this Crystal Kestrel, not doing the best job managing his energy. Baron does clean up the health tree and jumps the wall, and man, almost takes him down in just 3 shots. A good stun comes out, and the 1-shot, 1-kill does find him. But that is going to be a crystal turret for the side of Fnatic, and you know, to trade away a kill for an additional turret, to me, especially a crystal turret, is absolutely worth.
Yeah, I mean, I will say Barrett brought down that Kestrel very low. That was a lot of damage coming out on those two rockets, but not able to get the kill, unfortunately, for that. Reliable Union really have to be careful now, because Baron at this point is just going to become dangerous. 4 offensive items. He is going glass cannon, as we see a lot of Barons do, and it's just overall going to be really challenging. Palmatoro's still building into his second tier 3 offensive item, if you don't include the Clockwork. The Clockwork does really help in a lot of ways, but doesn't really offer damage improvement. Nettoilette, though, doesn't have a Crucible yet, and we're actually finding that this Grace can be really, really effective with her stun. So I think that's like, it didn't need it early, but this Crucible for the late game will just be that extra level of caution in case that Grace stun may land.
Yeah, and TechnoJJ finding a little bit of damage onto Grace here. They do look to engage the Crystal Sentry a little bit, which is incredibly dangerous, especially with the way these fights have been going. You know, they're just getting too separated. Blackfeather's going in a little too far, and Kestrel's not able to find the follow-up damage that she needs to be effective. And that falls right back into, I like the Crystal Blackfeather into Baron more, because you get the bigger barrier on your on point, and Kestrel is able to use her active camo more aggressively, get to Baron, and take him out of the fight. And we're just not able to see that out of this combination right now, unfortunately.
One shot, one kill, lands Nettoilette. All of the ultimates are up, though, for Fnatic, so it's actually pretty dangerous for Reliable Union to engage too far. They will have a lot of crowd control coming out with that first engagement. We do see them just poke it here, looking. That Crystal Sentry's at half health, and so he's at that point. He's not recalling, so he's just a sliver above it. They could easily take him out if they could get a little bit of clearance between Fnatic and themselves. Instead, watch out, what kill going to come out again. It does find Palmatoro this time, but no engage to follow.
No engage to follow, and this Kraken is back up, and now what we really need to see out of this Grace, you know, now that she's got 4 items complete, we can definitely keep buying the flares. Keeping the vision up is going to be smart. However, it looks like he may be building into an Echo as opposed to a Shatterglass. And to me, this is a really heavy wasted amount of gold, because you actually get more damage reduction on both your Benediction and on your Divine Intervention by building Crystal Power. Yes, you may get 2 heals out of it, but they're not as strong, and you're not getting the increased damage reduction. So to me, the Echo just, it can work, but maybe not the most optimal in this scenario where you're trying to prevent burst damage from coming down.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a trade-off, because having a hero get very low could be great bait. To then have 2 additional heals on top of a fountain can really help turn a fight, if anything, from just a psychological point of view, to just surprise the enemy team, stay in a fight a little bit longer, especially someone like Baron, who just needs to keep stacking on those hits. Active camos are being placed really strategically here to prevent the engagement from Fnatic. Reliable Union now just looking to find some kind of poke.
Yep, and they are definitely relying on a lot of this poke from Palmatoro. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of poke damage unless if he has his Reap heroic perk procced already with the 4 soul shards. So that provides really most of this Baptiste damage. And if Palmatoro can find those empowered bad mojos onto this Kestrel, she's going to be taken out of the fight very, very quickly. And Reliable Union coming down. Blackfeather does already burn one of his Rose offensive charges, and a stun goes down on Arden, baiting out the fountain already. But again, where is Kestrel? Nowhere to be found in this fight. There is the damage reduction from Grace, though, and unfortunately, Grace does drop it. A Glimmer Shot finds Nettoilette, and Palmatoro dangerously low himself. They are going to be forced back, but Reliable Union shouldn't be able to take the Kraken right now.
Yeah, they do push ahead pretty aggressively, though, looking to find these 2 kills. Daredevil may have not been able... Yeah, he didn't find the kill here. One shot, one kill is going to be wide on top of the side of Baron, man. Really, really close. They were very high health. Reliable Union was the last 2 carries. They would have been able, if they could have gotten in the right position before that healer treant was taken, possibly gotten one last kill for their effort. Unfortunately, not able to. Scout Trap finally being popped. As HF guy looking to just clear the farm, getting ready.
Yeah, and TechnoJJ has found himself a Metal Jacket. And Netrolette is building some more health now. I, again, really would have liked to have seen some additional shield come out. You know, these glimmer shots wouldn't. You know, last fight, you know, he was forced to fountain himself because these glimmer shots with just a fountain do a lot of damage. You're not actually negating that much damage with just the fountain. So if he can build into a second bit of shield here, that would really help him by baiting out the energy of HF guy, and that would help them find a cleaner fight. And that's really the downside of FNATIC right now, is they, you know, have a good composition. They're just not finding clean fights because Netrolette's taking so much damage from this Kestrel.
Nice position again. One shot, one kill. Does find Techno JJ. He's going to take a bit of damage as they look to engage here in the jungle, right next to the jungle shop. Trying to get this position around Kraken. They're going to push into the tri-bush. Helmutoro spots them out, but there's the lock of vision now as the scout trap's finally pushed. Techno does barely recall. I'm a little surprised that we didn't see the Kestrel try to get a glimmer shot just to do a little bit more hit. And stop that recall. They do then rush in all the way up to the lane as they try to get on the side of FNATIC. Nice stun coming out from Grace again, but it is going to be FNATIC looking to push down here as they go further and further. One shot, one kill comes out. Netrolette is stunned up, but the rest of the team is fine. They do come. Here's the gauntlet. It does keep Kestrel out of the fight, but stuns up both carries as we see Daredevil. Look at the heal coming out from those lifesteal items. He is able to get out. It's now Arden left. Last man remaining, and he is going to drop. And Reliable Union. Oh, no, he's able to get out. He's able to get out of that fight. I thought it was so close that he was going to probably get dropped. A one shot, one kill is not going to find Netrolette. He's going to get to base. No ace for Reliable Union.
No ace for Reliable Union, but it may be a turret. Unfortunately, Crystal Kestrel is not very good at taking the Kraken by herself. So with the Arden up, it's definitely risky, but they should, again, be able to find this turret pretty easily, but they will not be able to find any follow-up turrets. And again, look at those glimmer shots just taking Netrolette so low. Even though some of them miss, the ones that do hit do so much damage that it makes it worth it to poke out and bait out a fountain from the captain with this Crystal Kestrel.
Reliable Union actually finding these team fights as the game is starting to go on. And honestly, Grace able to land her crowd control stun. This is actually something we talked about. There's no gauntlet, Crucible yet on Netrolette, and you see him building into it, but he's not quite there, prioritizing a lot of vision. I do like the contraption coming out because you have that Kestrel, but he definitely needs to start considering getting this Crucible here. It will provide a little extra shield, too, from damage coming in from these Glimmer Shots. So, although it's not, you know, the shield you need, that barrier, the health from the Crucible, can be very useful in these fights.
It can, and the higher health pool does still help you deal with the Crystal Kestrel a little bit, because obviously if you have that additional, 400, 500 health, depending on what he builds this into, then it can definitely, leave a lot more health in his health pool. Even though the health bar drops, he's still got more total health. So it can be very masking still. And again, like you mentioned, it does provide a lot of upfront barrier with this Vanguard, and you definitely see with that bigger health pool, the one shot, one kill doing a lot less damage now. But when that one shot, one kill landed on top of the trap last time, it took him from full health to essentially nothing. So that's something that you really are going to have to watch out for if you're this Ardent.
Absolutely. You see him continue to push ahead. This is the one thing that Crystal Kestrel can do so well, is with these active camos. Create an area where if you're FNATIC, you're really stuck just watching your step, walking on eggshells if even, to avoid these active camos, as a stun up with a Glimmer Shot paired can really bring you down in health.
And yeah, they're doing a good job clearing out vision right now. Techno JJ does get found out by that scout trap, does find the damage on himself a little bit there just because Baron is so slow. He is full build though and infused, and this is a very dangerous spot for Reliable Union to be in if they see this infusion. Everybody in the game is infused, but Baron with 4 items and an infusion can put down a lot of splash damage, especially if he does find damage onto Kestrel. So gonna be important on where he can find the damage here. And a one-shot, one-kill sneaks past Netrolette and does get on Techno JJ.
Ooh, rooted up by the Grace, though. As the Treant finds the Grace, Ion Cannon's going to come out. We've got a huge fight breaking out. Gauntlet, nice job. Finally stuns up Daredevil. He does eventually get out with the Rose Offensive, but a lot of damage. The positioning from Barrett here right now, fantastic, as the Ordained locks him up. Blackfeather just doesn't have enough crowd control counters to get out of that final stun, and he's able to get trapped, taken down. Now, this is the first time we've seen FNATIC in the last few minutes really get a clear advantage. Oh, but the one shot on the active camo gets Palmatoro. Just really unlucky for Pal.
Fortunately, it wasn't enough to kill him. And again, that fight looked really well for the side of FNATIC. Even though when the Grace heal came out, Blackfeather was alive for a long time. Unfortunately, the Kestrel didn't have any follow-up glimmer shots to find the damage. All of them were used onto Netolette and Netolette only. So that's really where we see the Crystal Kestrel not doing well into this Baron, because once those glimmer shots are down, you have no way to get any follow-up damage. And Grace forced to use an ult on herself and is still going to die for it. That is absolutely huge with this Kraken up, and a 1-minute death timer is not something you want to see. Oh man, the active camo almost catches Palmatoro there. Unfortunately, just a step to the side. That would have been a clean kill for HF Guy if he would have found that one, but he does not. He does find a couple glimmer shots onto Palmatoro, taking him very, very low. But again, Grace down for another 34 seconds. So this is a pretty risky spot for Reliable Union to be in. Oh my goodness, these one-shot one-kills are landing almost every time, though. Yes, sometimes they're hitting Netolette, but when they do find Palmatoro or Techno JJ, the damage they are doing is absolutely insane.
You see Kestrel trying to find glimmer shots from the top point. Not going to find it here. It's very low Palmatoro. Also Techno's very low. Nice fountain, though. It might have been a bait as they do get in there. Their Dane is not able to find the kill, but it is going to be a kill going over to FNATIC. They find one. They do trade 1 for 1, and it's going to be Techno finding the even trade. They're going to get 2 for 1 in that trade, getting the kill advantage as Grace just hits the fold. This is actually pretty huge for FNATIC. Baron can now just push the lane and continue to reclaim some of this vision here and this jungle as they get ready for potentially a Kraken push. I mean, they could wait for Palmatoro to come down, or they could try to actually engage on this Kraken, forcing out the Grace. Grace has a few abilities to get in there and steal this Kraken, but it's going to be tough.
It is going to be tough indeed, and she does do a lot of damage with her Benediction, but I mean, it's still, you have to time it just right. And with the potential for this Baron to turn on you and start getting some damage down, it's definitely a dangerous spot because you do not want to get aced here either.
No, absolutely not. They're really close to getting a Kraken. Here comes
Ion Cannon comes out way too early from Palmatoro, Techno JJ there, but they do secure the Kraken. Unfortunately, Baron just, those hits do a big chunk of damage to the Kraken, so he was able to find it still. And that is going to be a Kraken marching down the lane. Again, he's full build, so he can't really do much with his gold other than keep renewing infusions. HF Guy does not have a broken myth complete yet on this Kestrel, which is concerning to me because he's not even finding as much damage on Palmatoro as he had been in the past.
Yeah, I mean, he's been doing a lot of his damage from a distance and in small chunks, so he hasn't even been able to really take advantage of it. But you're right, when he gets into those fights, he's not able to rack up that damage consistently. Like you would see with a broken myth here. Daredevil, a little bit too far forward, although he does have that Rose Offensive to get out of the fight. Ordain comes in, does get the stun. He's not able to Rose Offensive out of that, but nice stun by the Grace. She's able to come back in here. There's the Fear, comes out to try to stop this Daredevil's approach. Another Ordain comes in. He gets stunned up again, but look at that lifesteal. Giz keeps it in just a tad longer than expected, but he's finally dropped. Netolette, he may be the second to fall. Ordain catches the Grace. Oh, it's going to be Grace falling, and no kills going down. Nice stun by the Gauntlet. Oh my goodness, Netolette going to pay for it with his life, but totally worth it, as now FNATIC with a Kraken pushing are going to close out this game.
Yeah, and again, the Kestrel just not able to find damage on Baron, and Blackfeather going so far out that there's just nothing that HF Guy and his Kestrel can do. Yes, she's finding good poke damage, but if she can't get the damage down onto Techno JJ, then it's not gonna help the Blackfeather get the kill. He can't get that kill alone with this Arden doing such a good job protecting Baron.
Ooh, yeah, absolutely. And I really
31.5 minute game as well, so incredibly long game coming out of these two teams.
I want to highlight that, this is pretty rare to see Grace lose. Her win rate is really high, But the challenge here was, you know, as you were mentioning, into Baron, they really struggled with this Blackfeather pick. They weren't able to get any early game. And then, of course, late game, inevitably, Baron's going to be dealing more damage. Additionally, really impressed with Palmatoro's Baptiste. Like, pulling out, he went for that cooldown reduction on the Clockworks, which allowed him to use Ordain over and over again. And you saw at the end, this crowd control coming out of FNATIC was just too much, even for a Blackfeather to deal with, who's typically really good at avoiding a lot of that.
And I don't think the downfall was the Blackfeather here. He did a fantastic job. I think the real issue we ran into was, again, this Crystal Kestrel is just not good into Baron. So they really, I think they, in the future, can find more success if they practice this Crystal Blackfeather and practice the weapon Kestrel. They can find a lot more success into Baron that way. But again, once you're out of Glimmer Shots on Kestrel, there's just nothing you can do, and the Blackfeather is not going to be able to solo Techno JJ on the backline when again there's no reason to be scared of Kestrel when Net Toilette is doing such a great job soaking up those Glimmer Shots.
Yeah, I mean, that's unfortunate. Reliable Union, they looked strong in both games, not able to get the win, though. FNATIC showing up really huge, picking up 2 points. And if they've now taken that, what was a 3-point separation in points between them and Reliable Union, and has widened that considerably with these 2 points here, with room to get more points during the rest of the week. So congratulations to FNATIC as they come out here on the off-stream match, the victors. My name is Dragonborn, by the way. You guys have been watching the Vainglory8 powered by VIS. I've been joined here by Denominate, my caster, and we're going to be bringing you guys these off-stream matches every single Vainglory8 weekend here on Saturday. So make sure you guys tune in for the Europe cast. Also, we will be bringing the North America cast in just a few hours. So if you guys want to watch North America off-stream match as well, follow this channel. Make sure you come in, and you know, you'll be in for a treat as we get that all underway. With that, we're out for the time being now until we come back for North America. So everybody, head back over to the Vainglory8 channel. We'll see you guys over there as we continue watching the Vainglory8. See you guys then.